And we're live. Welcome to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of now and why that's so important. You know, there's a book that we're going to be kind of referencing along the way by Eckhart Tolle. And he talks a lot about being present, just being present in the now, because when we focus on the past and the future, and when we only look into the future, then it robs us of the present day. And when we do that, there's so many things that we actually miss, and there's true like liberation and freedom when we focus in the now. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
I always feel like $1,000,000 after watching that promo reel. I don't know who did that, but let's give them some like props, because every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, what's rock stars we get to work around, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing. Today,
Let alone
thanks, Mom.
of now. And let me just tell you, yesterday we were gonna have we have mastermind talks, right? So yesterday we were gonna have a call, and one of our people had an ultrasound appointment. And let me just tell you, when you put that on social media, Christina, I just want to tell you, I like literally got tears in my eyes, because I know you've been waiting for so long for this, but just to see him like 3D action and everything like that, and then hearing all this stuff, I want you to tell us a little bit, because so many people are always worried about the past, always worried about the future, always worried about everything else. And I'm like one of the biggest people, right? I'm always, but this happened in the past, and I don't know about this, and what's going to happen in the future. And, you know, you always worried about everything, right? You're worry.
Yeah.
But Robert and I went to a Faith Over Fear event a couple weeks ago, and the biggest word in there was surrender. And I think that just like encompasses everything that we're going to talk about today. But I would like for us to talk a little bit, Robert, just a little bit. Robert, just a little bit.
It's like, wait, what? About what? What are we talking about?
What are you setting me up for? Go ahead.
About Christina's like experience yesterday and being in the present moment.
If there's anything that represents the power of now, it is these experiences. So thank you, Christina. You've got the floor.
Well, you'll notice I'm crying happy tears, okay? We call them happy tears over here. When we came home and showed Izzy the pictures from the ultrasound, she also cried happy tears. And so, you know, that's the beautiful blessing of living in the moment and living now. For those of you that don't know my story, or you're just catching this conversation for the first time, my husband and I have gone through a challenging time, not infertility, but through miscarriages. And like that takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your heart and your body. And I know many women go through that. And there's this constant worry when you finally get pregnant again. There's this constant worry that something bad is going to happen, or you're going to get bad news. And as much as I pray and get my mindset and meditate and do all those things, there's still this underlying apprehension. And so yesterday we got to go to an ultrasound appointment here. And I was just telling them before we hopped on live, what an incredible experience it was, because, you know, previously, like when I was back in Canada, you go into an ultrasound appointment with a full bladder. You would just get through this appointment. It's 10 to 15 minutes. They won't tell you anything about the baby in the ultrasound appointment, like nothing. You have to go to your doctor, and your doctor will tell you, right? And then you leave, and you have to wait a couple of weeks to find out what's going on. And so our experience was completely opposite in Mexico. We went to the hospital, and she was a little bit late. Okay, Mexican time. There was an emergency, and so she had to be in there.
It's island time. It's
island time, right? And so it's fine, right? But we waited around, and she ended up taking an hour and a half with us. And she went through the whole process. She measured his femur. She measured his arms. She counted all of his fingers and toes. She showed us the quadrants of his heart, the blood pumping through his heart. She showed us like all the quadrants in his brain, and like and she's like, this is perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect. The only thing I have to worry about is because of my age. Okay. Like, let's not go there. I was a geriatric pregnancy. That's what they call it in Canada. Okay. But like, I mean, I know, right? Anything over 35.
Western medicine. That's Western medicine talking. Go ahead.
So they said, they're the increased risk, but she said, you have negative test on this, the baby's measuring perfectly, right? So it put my heart at ease. I really feel so lucky and blessed to have this experience and to be wholeheartedly there and watching and present, because it's so easy to worry about what's happened to you in the past and all the things that could go wrong. And it's really easy to start worrying about the future. Like, what if we don't get to have this baby? What if something terrible happens, right? Because when my daughter was born, she didn't breathe for her first 5.5 minutes. It was touch and go. And so I also had that traumatic experience, and so all of these layers of our personal experience affect how we show up every single day. But truly the power of now, the power of living in present, right? And you said faith over fear. Facts over fiction. When you live in present moment and look at the facts, there's no need to worry about the fiction part of it, right? And so I really thank you for letting me share that. But it was like really an impactful and powerful moment for us. And man, like, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that we kept trying and we kept looking for solutions and held out hope, because that's the message I want to bring forth, is that if things aren't going the right way, like, keep seeking solutions, keep holding out hope. If it's something that you truly want and desire, stop worrying about the past, stop having anxiety over the future, and live now presently. That's my mom. I love you, Mom. Thank you.
So nice.
I love you, Mom. But you know what? It is true. And I mean, and I'm going to be like, this is real raw and authentic here. Like, there's so many times that I worry about the future, or that I think about the past and, this happened before and it might happen again. And this happened this time. And so it might happen again. And, but what if, and what if, and what if, and what if, and what if. But you always have those what if negative things. But I always have this one meme that said, what if I fail? And then somebody says, but what if you fly?
Yeah,
absolutely. And here's the interesting thing, right? Like, we get so caught up in like putting these ideas, these concepts into two buckets, right? Negative and positive. However, when we start to really embrace, like when you look back into your past and you start to really embrace the negative things that have happened, they actually in turn are part of the positive things that happen into your present and the future. And so all those things make up who we are. I mean, none of us here, the four of us for sure, would not be equipped to serve a big audience if we haven't gone through some shit, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll just kind of put that out there, because that's exactly what it is. And so again, everyone knows I'm the mindset guy. I talk a lot about mindset and heart set alignment. And with everything that you're saying, Christina, I mean, it's perfectly in line with that, because what happens is we talk about mindset. A lot of coaches out there that only focus on mindset, they say it's all about, power of persuasion, power to impact, like to change your thoughts, to just, but really the idea is that's only 20% of actually what's happening. It's controlling the rest of our body, which makes up the 80%. So mindset, truly, that mindset, heart set, faith alignment is truly your entire body. And so anything that goes into your brain that's negative, and we're going to be talking a lot about that today, even when you think that things are finally fine, you're holding all those things into, your body, your organs, your health, other things that actually happen, things that can trigger you, right? Just little effects that you're not even noticing along the way. And so that's what I love about this topic. When you had brought it up, and I believe it, Starr, you kind of first threw it out there, and then all of a sudden we all jumped on it because we're like, yeah, we know Eckhart Tolle. I mean, that's, there's so many principles built around that. And so I'm really excited to kind of just dive in and talk a lot about that, why it's important to have a strong mindset, but also to have that strong mindset, it's embracing the fact that I was wounded in the past. There are traumas of the past. You have to just accept it, call it as it is. Don't pretend like it didn't happen. Once you do that, and those wounds Are you guys hearing an echo here? Okay. Once those wounds can become scars, right? Then that's where power really starts to happen into your present state.
I do want to ask, like, everybody, like, what do you do when you are stuck in that? Because you know how when negative things start happening, a lot of negative things start happening. It's just like more and more and more and more, and you're like, oh my gosh. But then when good things start happening, you're like on that good roll, right? Like Paco works in commission sales, and so like and I've been in there. I've been in that commission piece before where you have all these good things happening and all these good sales and you have a good month and it keeps on going and keeps on going, but then you fall into a rut, right? Like, and then it's hard to get over that rut and put that positivity in. So what do you guys do when you find yourself in that rut? So Starr, I want to ask you, like, what do you guys do to keep yourself in the power of now?
Yeah, so when things are going a little bit chaotic, or, it could be in your personal life or your business life, it's very important to see, what are some action steps you can do to have a solution in this immediate present time. Because when you think about the future, our future goals can be so huge. And when we think about building something towards that, you kind of feel like, oh, I can't do that. And then you take no action. So I'm always looking for quick, simple solutions actions that I can take, maybe bringing in support if needed, whether that be like for your relationship, your family, or even for business, a team member, so that I can help get out of that state that I'm currently in. Help move towards the future in a smaller baby step way.
So you kind of like break your big goals down, like have your big goals for the year and then break them down by month, break them down by week, break them down by the day. So then they're like little tiny minute things that you have to do in order to get to those goals.
You do that with goals, but for me, it's like more of like a crisis mode. What can I do to get out of this?
Right? It's like that fight or flight. And sometimes getting them out of that fight or flight mode is hard.
That's why support system is so key, right? I always talk about the fact that although we're very good at what we do, we are our own worst coaches. I mean, that's just kind of the fact. So it's typically why, even when people are at the peak of their career, if we just talk about coaching in general, and we think of some of like the icons that are out there, they have a coach, they have a mentor, they have a support system. And so at any level, whether you're just kind of figuring things out, or you're very seasoned in this, you need that support. And that's typically because at your weakest moment, I mean, you can't drag yourself out of the fire. That's basically what it comes down to. And so this show, the three of you, right, as part of support, our clients, I always talk about that, and I just want to mention this a moment so that people kind of understand what happens in a stage of mindset based on what you said, Tina. A few years ago, I reached this point where I basically had fallen apart myself. And I felt this imposter syndrome around who I used to be, my past self, in regards to how can I, as the mindset, heart set coach, and I was speaking on stages, right, all across the United States at the time. And I thought, how can I actually be that person if I'm in this broken state? And so I convinced myself somewhere along the way at that point in time that I just wasn't worthy to be able to step up to the plate. When in fact, we find that once you embrace that, my broken state allowed me to serve even a bigger audience. And so coming back to what I was saying about clients, I used to hide that aspect with my client, right? Like if I was having a bad day, I didn't want them to see how vulnerable I was or what kind of state I was in. So I put on this kind of facade. Now I'm finding that we're even getting more out of the session when we sit there and we're very vulnerable with each other, right? And I learn just as much from them as they're learning from me along the way. And so I really enjoy that, just like in this aspect, we're learning from each other. And so again, I say pour in, show up authentically, and that in itself, you have to be vulnerable, but that in itself will open you up to so many things that will heal you and put you in the present.
Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so much there I want to focus on because I'm sitting over here taking notes, right? But that support system, right? The vulnerability piece, by the way, the stuff that you work through, the stuff that you admit that you focus on, like the stuff you focus on grows. So that vulnerability piece is actually your super connector with everybody else. But I will have a very transparent conversation with you that I had a business coaching session this morning. And I've audited my business, which is like one of the most stressful things to do because you get to see all the holes in the bucket, right? And so he came and he said to me, Christina, look, like, this is who you are. This is who I see. And there's a disconnect right here. And there's like, I coach people on mindset all the time, but because of my filter of how I see the world, there are certain pieces that I can't coach myself on that I need other people to highlight. And again, that comes down to looking at the facts versus fiction, right? Like you have to look at the facts and what you've created and what you're able to create and what you're able to help people with. But it's having, like Starr said, that daily action plan. Your habits determine the outcome. So if you're a worrier, you're constantly worrying about what happened because of your past. If you have anxiety, you're worried about what's going to happen next. And so when you learn that what you focus on grows, you start to focus on solutions that you can control, right? And I'll give you an example because my husband and I, we stay up to date on like world politics. We stay up to date on the socioeconomics. Like we stay up to date on all these things because we're seeking solutions for other people in business. And we want to be able to have a worldly conversation about what's going on out there. Now, you can easily spiral down a rabbit hole in that situation, okay? Like you can listen to something and be like, oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. How are we, What are we gonna do, right? And so you can easily spiral down, right? And so we have these conversations and we keep each other in check. Like we have to be educated so that we have the knowledge to discuss and the wisdom to take action on, but you can't sit in that space if it's a negative space. And so you have to have the discipline and the discernment to be able to work through it and seek solutions. So if this is happening right now, what's the solution for not only you, your family, but your clients, your customers? How can you support them right now in the real world of what's going on? Not what happened 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or what's going to happen in the future. We can't worry about that because it's out of our control. But what are we going to do today that is going to move the needle forward? And that comes down to your standards in business and the habits that you possess on a daily basis.
So true. And that concludes today's show. No, just kidding.
We'll see you next week when we're talking about how to stop being a worrier.
Yeah. No, but that is so true. That is so true. And Starr, I think right before we went live, right, you and Tina were having this conversation about some ailments or pain that you've been kind of working through. But yeah, we won't get into the details. I know we're uncensored, but we're not going to be that uncensored. But
I tell people I broke my ass, and
yeah. But really, right? Like at the end of the day, and like even like Kelly, I don't know if she's actually on watching live, but she has chronic pain as well that she's been dealing with. And I know many of us do. And so these things can all be major distractions from us actually being present and then truly focusing on like the power that's actually obtainable. Like what's at our fingertips? What can we do? Right? You there? She's there. Okay. All right. Yep. So,
and it is true. I mean, Starr was, expressing to me that she's had some back issues because I fell down the stair. Well, I missed one stair. I came down to Florida to surprise Paco for his birthday on Saturday. And I had a bunch of stuff in my hand and I missed one stair and boom, right on my butt. And I broke my ass. Christina Torres would be the one to break her ass.
Ouch.
And Kelly's right. The more you focus on, the more it hurts. And so
it's everything we were talking about earlier, it's like where
something like that, like your back or, something like that. Like they were like, oh, you can't do nothing because, you can't put your ass in a cast. Right. And I'm like, well, what can you do? So you were like heat and ice and don't sit on it too long and don't stand on it too long. And I'm like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. What do they say? Like where, and I may get this reversed around, but where attention goes, right? Energy flows and so, but now again, it doesn't mean that we're saying to have such a strong mindset that you absolutely are oblivious to pain. You're going to experience that pain, but it's just like what I said earlier about the past, right? These things that have happened to us, trauma, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, whatever it may be, like that in itself, you have to, number one, accept it. It's there. It's real. I have it. But as Kelly even was saying, to break it down kind of even deeper, though, in the fact that, yes, she deals with this. However, she's focusing on the goals that are like before us, the children, probably keeping me in line, those kind of things, right?
That takes all day long.
That's a full-time job. But,
right? I
but
think
those
she
things, exactly. Because again, and Starr and Tina, but I know Starr, you've been kind of laid up for a while now, so I'd like to hear from you in regards to this. But again, I'm just relating this to Kelly. I know that when she's stressed out at work or all these other things it's a compound effect. And then that chronic pain really becomes amplified, right? Yeah. However, when we're on vacation and we're traveling the world and we're laying on a beach,
mention nothing about her back pain
with a pina colada, it's not just the pina colada that's covering up that pain. It is the fact that you're in a state of like just bliss. You're happy. You're not focused on those type of things. So, Starr, how have you dealt with this lately? I mean, you run an empire, and yet I know, as you stated, you've had a lot of time where you're just kind of laying there on your back.
Yeah, definitely. This year has been the worst. It was interesting because my mother-in-law had a car accident a little over a year ago. Yeah, about a little over a year ago. And she went down this rabbit hole of having to have surgery, getting an infection. And so she literally couldn't walk for like a year. And my back went out a little bit after she had that accident. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like, I'm suffering the pain that she's suffering at the same time, which is crazy. But she was telling me, anyways, let me get off topic here. The last few weeks have been the best that I felt this year. Like I was limping, I got issued a cane, I felt handicapped. I'm like, you guys have no idea. But I still was showing up. I was like, people didn't realize that I was going through this stuff. But I got to a point where it got so severe that I was just like, okay, I can't take this anymore. What am I gonna do? Like I started getting in my head, getting almost depressed, like what's my life gonna look like next year? I don't know if I could do this again. So anyways, I started to recover right now, and that doesn't mean I'm fully healed. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, I'm still recovering. But my mother-in-law was sent to pain there. Like she receives pain medication, but also she's with like a group where they talk about this. And a lot of it is the power of the mind that they talk about every week on this call. And so she was just letting me know, sorry, don't think about the negative. Don't say, oh, well, I feel better now. What if, I'm going back to that, oh my God, what if I get in this state where I'm limping again? And my body is curved.
Yeah.
So you have to stay focused in the present. You have to stay very optimistic and positive and get yourself out of that pain. So that's definitely what I've been working on, and just chatting with her. I'm so happy right now that, yes, I am in pain, but it's not what I've been experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah, your body holds that memory, right? So both good and bad, meaning that if you focus on the relief, then you'll feel more relief. If you focus on, oh, what if this comes back and it was so, disabling or whatever, like it starts to amplify once again. And that's exactly
mind over matter, right? Like,
right.
You got to start focusing on what it is. But what if it is past failures that you are worried about?
Exactly.
So,
and that's still trauma. That's still pain, right? It doesn't matter how, whether we're talking physical, mental, or spiritual, as I was stating before, like it's the same exact, prescription for that.
Yeah.
It could be your upbringing. It could be past trauma. It could be an experience that you had. And, not a lot of people know this about me, but I was in a couple of car accidents when I was really, really young. My dad was actually off work for 3 months with whiplash. Like it was that bad. And I carried pain for almost 15 years that I didn't sleep well. I couldn't do much exercise or anything. Right. And the mindset that I had was, this is as good as it's going to get at the time. Right. And so I had to work through those things. And something really interesting happened, because a lot of the time pain is attached to emotion and we don't even recognize that. It took me almost 20 years to recognize that when I have shoulder pain, because I would have shoulder pain come and go and in my career as a hairstylist, I was like, this is so weird. Like randomly I have shoulder pain. Right. And as time went on, I was getting treatments from this gentleman, and man, it was painful, but it was helping. And he goes, but it should be helping more. And he said, have you ever had trauma to this shoulder, or some sort of emotional trauma? And I was like, oh my God, like the origins of this hurt was in high school. I had an abusive boyfriend that threw me into a closet one day and like put my shoulder out. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk about it. I didn't, none of those things happened. And
Yes.
so I carried that weight of that trauma so long until I could shine a light on it and be like, oh, wait a second. Now I realize every time I have shoulder pain, it's because I'm stressed. I don't carry stress like everybody else. I bulldoze through it, right? Like I'm a fighter and I'll bulldoze through it. But every time my body feels stress or I'm supposed to feel stress, I have shoulder pain. And now that's my indicator of like, hey, you need to back off from whatever you're doing right now and be more present in what you're doing and be intentional with your time so that, so like you can use the pain to actually work towards something that you want. You can use it as an indicator of something that you need to shift and change, right? Just like Starr, you were saying, like all of a sudden I feel great, or, and you've kind of left behind this little piece that was like kind of keeping you the way that you were. And so I think that that's a really important thing to, Tolle, how do you say it? Tolle? I say Tolle, but maybe I'm saying
Eckhart Tolle. I say
okay,
Tolle.
Good. Okay, I'm like, sometimes I'm Canadian and I say it wrong, but like
she puts out her Canadian and she says, her little Canadian words all the time.
Hey, Tolle? Is it Tolle?
Tolle, like French, right? But like he talks about that too in Dissolving Body Pain, is like accepting it, seeing it for what it is, and then understanding it so that you can move forward.
Well, I do know that there are a lot of pressure points in your body that you can get rid of different types of things. So I was like, of course, I'm like, okay, how do you get rid of a broken ass? And so they're like, oh, there's a pressure point behind your knee.
Yeah. Tina, I hate to tell you this, but Tony just made up those rules, actually.
Totally. Just let me massage it, honey. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh, no, it was a whole icy hot incident yesterday. Yeah. It was just horrible.
He's like, Tina, and I read this, and Tina, and I read that.
Hold on, let me get your
But anyways, for those that are just tuning in, Tina did actually fall a few days ago, and she did break her ass. That's what she's referring to. And so, but no, that's exactly what it is. And it is so interesting. I did some deep diving work again on myself just a few years ago. And by the way, I recommend that everyone does it, right? Just like how we tune up a car like annually. I have recommend that you continue to do
like
that.
Christina, she just did a business audit. We need to do a
always
body audit, like a
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's everything. It's mind.
Like, what do I need to do?
Mind, heart, like values, like everything, right? Those goals need to be a little bit more in depth than just like this financial goal in life. And by the way, since we're on that subject, in most cases, we're not obtaining these financial goals as well because of some of these traumas that we're talking about, like the fact that we're not living in the now and focusing on like today's task. We're typically going, I'm measuring myself by the past and things just aren't right. So you start to kind of break things down, mindset wise. And so that brings in this trauma, this pain, whatever it may be, limiting beliefs. And then you start only focusing on the future of where you absolutely know, like you have to have those goals, but you spend so much time again focusing on past and present, as Tolle says, that you miss everything that's happening today in the present. And therefore, it's an amplified result of everything that happens. So let's kind of break down some of this so that when people come in, I know that you pulled up a few main points out of The Power of Now. I don't know if we want to reference anything specific. I know one topic is ego. Anyone want to talk about ego?
Well, isn't ego?
Thank you. The power of Chat GPT, right? Like that's how we pulled up.
Oh yeah. That's all right. That by the way, that's
go audit the book.
That's the right way.
Yeah, she's like, hold on a second. I'm gonna go read the book real quick. Okay, done.
Thank you. Sorry, Tina, you go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. But talking about ego.
Ego meaning edging God out.
Oh, I don't know why I haven't heard that before, but that just like hits me in the heart a little.
I heard that years ago, edging God out, because you have, your ego is not letting you see what's in front of you.
Wow.
Well, and here's what he says about it, right? Our egos create a false sense of identity, causing suffering and preventing us from experiencing true awakening. I can attest to this because how many of you out there have thought about a conversation you had a week ago, 6 months ago, 10 years ago, that you wish that you would have had a different conversation and reacted differently, and you beat yourself up for it now, right? So our egos take over and we try and justify how we feel or justify our experience or justify all those things. Whereas if we live presently in what we are experiencing right now, like I freaking love Thursdays. I love working with you guys. I love showing up and having these conversations and laughing and seeing where it goes, right? And providing that kind of value to our audience. Like that is one of my favorite things that I look forward to every week. Why would I sit here and think, oh, like, man, what if I say something wrong? Or like, what if somebody judges me for something that I say? Or, you know, and so we're our own worst enemies when we're talking from, you know, within and we're telling ourselves something, right? So Tina, I love that. I love that.
I like that too.
Years ago, and it always stuck with me, and it is so true because you always, and I don't know if women do it more than men, but we tend to worry about what people think about us. And I am a recovering people pleaser, and I wanted to look the part and say the part, and I didn't want to say anything bad and didn't want to act, you know, and I was like, I am not acting like myself. Not that I'm a horrible person, but I wasn't acting like myself. I wasn't acting like my true, authentic self. And, you know, Christina, when you talk about that, you know, you sometimes don't want to ruffle feathers. So, you know, you get your 10 people who are haters, but then you get your 150,000 who you're helping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It says, it's real quick on that point, since we're talking about Chat GPT as well, which by the way is not a sponsor of our show.
They should, anyways, we should get them to sponsor us.
I know.
Out to us and we can schedule it.
Right. But Tolle says he talks a lot about ego and how ego specifically identification, right? And it says, he explains how egos create a false sense of identity. So it's everything that we're talking about, a false sense of identity causing suffering and preventing us from experiencing a true awakening. Boy, isn't that true? Isn't that
that's
true?
Like a stab in the heart of it, you know?
It is. And sometimes when you think of ego, it's in that positive and negative aspect again, because we always talk about that. Like mindset is built up of both the traumas and the good times in your life. Like that is who you are. That is your brand. But I love that. And it's so true, like preventing us from experiencing a true awakening. There's so many times that I'm also like, let's say you have major results, major breakthrough for clients, right? That in itself is also something that you absolutely want to celebrate. Of course you do, right? And yet, or the results of this show, or the way that we're able to change lives, or when we get, you know, good mail, right, that comes in. And yet it's like that ego sometimes can creep in and it prevents you from having like this true impact and this true awakening. And so like to be in the present, right? To remain humble. It's I think that's something for all of us to practice, quite frankly.
Definitely.
That was literally my Oh, sorry, Starr. You go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Did you hear her Canadian story?
So I think one key takeaway for me is like living in the present so that you can be happy, have that joy, have that fulfillment is so important, because when we're living in the past and we're living in the future, we start to get that stress, we get that overwhelm, we get that fear. And it's like, you're doing this to your own body when you don't even have to. If you're like literally living in the present day time of today, okay, do you have a roof over your head today? Are you able to eat today? What's happening in your life today in this very moment? There's no reason for you to have this level of stress. And I you know, when I was younger, I used to stress a lot when I was like a teen and a very young adult, but rightfully so. But right now I've really like gotten a lot away from that. I do stress, of course, we all do at some points, but I've really dialed into living in the present day time. And one thing that he did point out about the now is that we are going to suffer like pain such as the loss of a loved one. And that really hit me to the core, because many of us here have lost a loved one. And in that now moment, yes, we are going to experience sadness and we aren't going to be happy. But it's very important that we figure out how to move out of that state as well, because we still have to, you know, have fulfillment in our lives.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Not only figuring out how to move past it or being equipped to do so, but once you've done that, it's our duty. And that's where a lot of people hold back. It's our duty now to pay that forward, meaning that now that I've experienced this pain and this loss, there's going to be others out there, right? In my audience, in my tribe, that are experiencing the same thing, that don't necessarily know how to get out. And that's what I love about everything.
That's where you take your story and you write a book.
Yeah, Tina.
So true, right?
You help others, because we just launched Be a Glow Stick Girl last week, and it hit number 2 bestseller, and everybody's like, oh, me, I'm like, I want to hit number 1. And I was, I talked to Paco. He's like, what's the matter? And I was like, all down on myself. He goes, you hit number 2. I said, I know, but it's not number 1. He goes, Fred Shelton is number 1. He has 15 million followers, and you're like,
but it's that ego thing again, right? We all want to be number 1, of course.
I want to be number 1.
But celebrate the small things.
But after he told me that, I was like, I know. And then literally the next second, I get a text message saying, hey, Tina, I just got the book and it looks amazing. And I'm sitting here reading your story, and oh my gosh, I didn't know this about you. And so, you got to take it. You got to get that ego out, right? I was wanting to hit that number 1 spot, not, it's just a number 1 spot. It's going to be number 1 for 15 minutes on Amazon while they refresh it and get somebody else to be number 1. So, and then, you start getting the stories behind it saying how much you're helping them. And you're like, oh, that was why I wrote this book. That is why I got these 16 amazing authors in there to share their story, because you got to take that hurt and that pain and that trauma, turn it into something good, and then share it with other people, because they're going through the same thing.
This is such a valuable conversation and this is why I love Uncensored, right? Uncensored Entrepreneurs, because we get to be vulnerable. We get to share these things, our inner dialogue that you may not think, right? And so often over the years, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more about my call this morning, because I think that it's so relevant. Often over the years, I've had people that just whether I've asked for counseling or mentorship or whatever, they're like, nobody else is thinking this, Christina, just you. And I realized, childhood stuff or whatever it was the stories that I told myself for so many years, the things that built my ego were the things that held me back. And so today I'm having this conversation, and he goes, Christina, we have put you as somebody who is an ambassador of our program, of our 8-figure program that we're building to 9 figures. You speak eloquently, you are intelligent, you do all this thing. And then over here, you're not doing the work to help the people because you're insecure about not being able to help them to your highest ability.
It's robbing you of the present.
It's robbing me of the present, of doing the work today. My procrastination is built out of this falsehood that isn't real, right? And this has been my issue that I've been going through for a couple of years. And he offered to give me a one-on-one session, because he's like, I see you fighting through it, but why not walk through it with ease? Why not actually do the work and walk through it with ease and think that you have to fight through it? Because he's like, everybody sees this, but you feel a different way, and it doesn't impact your business in a positive light. He's like, you can absolutely make $300,000, $500,000 by the end of the year. Next year, you can make millions. You just have to get over this one little ego piece that is holding you back. Because a lot of the time people see ego, right? They see ego as being they have a big ego it's negative, or or it's impactful in not the greatest way. But what about not the outward, but what about the inward? What about how we're talking to ourselves and how we feel about ourselves? Because I know what I'm capable of. I know the impact I've made on multiple entrepreneurs' lives, their families' lives, all of these things, right? I have facts and show results. So why am I at all hesitating to go out there and race to find the next person I can help, as opposed to sitting here in my own crap and being like, oh, well, I don't know if I should do that, right? So I'm sharing that with you because it happens to all of us.
It keeps going back to ego, right? I mean, I know that's we're kind of stuck on that, but that's exactly what it is, because it robs us of that joy that we could actually be having in the present, which then in turn, as we know, amplifies into the future. We talk a lot about all these things that are happening so that people can relate with us, so that they know that they're not alone. And so I do want to kind of reflect for the second half, if we can, about the ways to unprogram yourself and how we're able to pull ourselves out, as Tina said earlier, when you're stuck in that rut. And I know that as much as we talk about the inner talk, I do want to just mention there's a few words. It's the way that we say things that actually brings this into mind, which then amplifies into body, right? And then that's what turns into results. So when I think of things like just last week, ran into a colleague of mine. I was very overwhelmed that day. I'm juggling a lot of things as usual. And they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing great, but I am so busy. And then I realized as I reflected back on that, just that statement, I am so busy, because we all say that a lot. Been very busy. You know, where have you been? I haven't seen you. I've just been busy. And those words, like, words matter. And those words have been programming me all along that I need to start changing that more into statements like, I've been very productive. And if I do that, if I say that enough, just by changing something that simple, and that's just one example I'm giving, that I'm reminding myself of that. And I found in the last few days that I actually am becoming so much more productive with my time. If I say I'm busy, then I'm always going to be in the state of just being busy. And busy doesn't always mean productive or advancing in any way. So anyway, that's one example.
I like that. And I would want the audience to give us some words that you use instead. I mean, I know, you don't want to use debt. You want to use financially free, financial free, instead of debt, because debt's a negative word. You know what I mean? And I know Christina has a long list of things. So, Christina, I want you to tell us a couple of words that,
Christina's pulling out her list right now.
Hold on a second. I got a book that says.
I mean, we always talk about
busy, so instead of saying you're busy, say that you're productive. You're being productive.
Yes.
Instead of saying you're in debt or you want to be debt free, say you want to be financially free. What are some of the other things that you can say, that just those things that people always say all the time?
They say I'm stuck or I'm struggling, right? I'm stuck. I'm struggling with this. Well, how about, hey, the challenge I face today is this. Here are 2 solutions that I think could work. What do you think would work best? Right? Like, just moving through those pieces.
That's what it is.
And sometimes we have to do this in a different way. Sometimes we need other people to work through it. Sometimes journaling and evaluating your business and going through that audit is going to, shine a light on the things that you need to reflect upon and change. But here's part of being present too. And I think it's part that we usually often forget about, is like grounding. Busy entrepreneurs are so multitask, or they're so busy because they're multitasking.
You almost used the word. Yeah, exactly.
Busy. I don't say that, right? but what we are conscious, and it's so, again, we're our worst coaches, right? But we can recognize it in other people when they say it. I'm like, as soon as somebody says I'm struggling, I'm like, well, first of all, let's remove that from your vocabulary and start with something different. Okay, like, let's be solution oriented. But this grounding piece, and I will tell you, a lot of the times I felt guilt. I felt guilt for taking 20 minutes to meditate. I felt guilt for going to walk and sit on the beach for half an hour in the morning, just with my own thoughts.
I think you should feel guilty because of that. And I think you should feel guilty that you're on social media. Oh, this is my happy place. And I'm like, it's my happy place too. I need to go visit.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're all control freaks though, right, Tina? Like, we're all control freaks and we want to be able to manage all of these things. But until we take that time out and see the thing, when people come to me and say, oh yeah, that was easy for you, right? They don't know the struggle that we went through moving. They have no idea the adversity that we faced and what it took to be able to walk to the beach. I can't even walk to the beach right now. It's so hot and I'm pregnant. It's not happening. I drive, to be perfectly honest, then walk on the beach and sit there. But when you realize, look, there's something out there that I'm like, man, I want that. How are you going to create it? Instead of having anxiety, that'll never be me, getting depressed and upset and right? The ego piece. How can I achieve that? What can I do? Tina, I've been trying to get you to move down here for months, but now you have Paco. So now you got to convince Paco. So you know what I mean?
It wouldn't be hard convincing him to move to the beach.
It's step by step, those little things, those little habits that you do daily that'll move you through those pieces of being stuck or confused or unsure or whatever. It's like actually taking the time to focus on them, feel the pain, feel the emotion, right? So that you can actually figure out what the bottom line is so you can move through it.
That's it. That is exactly it. We constantly tell ourselves, and I'm saying this because it's a fact. I know I do it, and we've all talked about this before, and I know my clients give me the same responses, that so many times we talk ourselves into the state of, I just can't do it, or I don't have time, like saying things like that. We have to get out of this programming, because you know what? If you tell yourself every day that you don't have enough time, you will never have enough time. I mean, that is just
You know,
if
and
that.
people have time. They have time for what they want to have time for.
Thank you.
They have money for what they want to have money for.
Right. No, that is so true. And
But
so
I
it's
just want to ask Starr. Starr, do you have
habits.
any words that you
Well,
say?
I'm guilty
We all are.
of always saying, I hope and I wish. Like I
Mm,
goal or achieve this result. I wish. And because I have so many amazing friends like you guys and people who are mentors as well, a lot of people always correct me, whereas in the past I never had that. It's like, no, Starr, you
You
are
will.
going to. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, okay. So I'm still like working on eliminating that from my vocabulary.
And even I am going to. I am a million. You know, putting it in already into present
Absolutely.
tense. You know, I am a millionaire. I am productive. You know, not I am going to be, because that's still future tense. That's still something that you're not.
You know, that's so true. I've been working a lot. I told you that we wanted to have like Watson on here as well. So we're going to try to get him on there. He does the alignment effect and all kinds of other things.
Yes.
And like
Let me just tell
love
you-
like
let me tell you really quick.
Tyler, if you're watching, right? I've
I
already
love your
connected
book. I love your book.
Yeah.
So listen, Paco is not a reader. I mean, he
Mhm.
reads, but he is not a reader. And I bought him Tyler Watson's book after we went to Faith Over Fear. He has read that book beginning to end, and he is
Great
like
book.
so motivated. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this and this and this," and I was like, "Oh wow!"
It's-
So
it's-
we are going to have Tyler Watson on here, and he is an amazing person that literally just does these little tapping things that can completely change
Right.
your life.
Right. I mean, we're talking about somebody that was a skilled chiropractic practitioner that then realized it was more about the psychology of how you felt afterwards that took away some of the pain and all these other things. And then he amplified it in so many ways. I mean, right down, and I won't get into specifics. I'll let him tell the story, but I will just say right down to the fact that, and that's what triggered all of it kind of in momentum, that he was able to get people that had allergies, right? Like actual allergies, to completely do away with those allergies just by talking to ourselves, convincing our body of something otherwise. And so you said that, Starr, you said, I'm guilty of this. We all are, right? And so it's just it's more about the conscious state of catching yourself and going, oh, you know what? That isn't serving me. And once you do that, that in itself is a major programming tool, right? Because your brain and how it amplifies through your nerves into the body starts to say, you know what? That was bad. And then when you start to say that, you'll catch it and it'll also just feel bad. Or now it becomes like, now some of these negative things are just natural, right? But I love that. And so I've been focusing, a lot around those type of things, how to reprogram yourself. We have a history from the time that we were born that we have programmed ourselves and allowed others to program ourselves, right? So the influences of even people that had good intentions, our teachers, our parents, right? All the people around us, best friends.
Well, even even the money thing. If you watched your parents struggle and live paycheck to paycheck, then that's the way that you think that you have to live, and that's the way you feel. You know, you've had people, your parents spending money like crazy, then you probably are doing the same things. So even those money things, which Jenny Potter is going to be one of our guests here shortly too, and she's going to be able to help you release those money traumas that you have.
We're just laying them all out, all of our guests. Yeah.
You have, right? Like
name dropping.
Yeah.
Name dropping. We're going to have Jessica Higdon on. We're going to have Justin.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, and in fact, I have a little surprise. I don't have a date yet, but the one and only Les Brown is going to come on our show.
Legend. I love Les.
Because he likes me. He calls me Tina May. I have a little crush on him.
Yeah. Les is
like
great.
that, Paco.
But even so even when we're speaking of somebody like Les, okay, known around the world for his statements and his work around changing mindset, focusing on heart set. And yet he himself over the last 10 years, he has gone through this journey of his kind of the hero's journey, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. And so he talks a lot about that. this mindset and the things that we're talking about, living in the power of now, all of these things, it doesn't mean that you're so in tune and so programmed that you're absent from any of these negative experiences. Again, it's all about having the tools and to be able to recognize when these negative habits come in, and then, you know, what to do with them from there. That's all it's about. I mean, really. And so I don't want people to think that they can't hold themselves up to this certain standard, or they're failing even, further because of whatever state they're in. It's okay. Actually, quite frankly, as we just stated, you will learn from pain. It's just being able to get out of that pain, to be able to focus and to move forward. So,
and you know, one thing that I have always learned, and it's what I've taught for over 18 years, is the power of gratitude. You know, start your day with gratitude and end your day with gratitude. You know, and I do a 30 days of gratitude challenge every November. For 30 days, I want you to say, you know, who you are grateful for or what you are grateful for every single day. And the amazing stories that I get just after 30 days. So imagine if you did it every day for a year, and you start your day off with that gratitude. You're going to start just by simply thanking God or the universe for what you already have.
That's so true.
So we also look at external things for fulfillment, right? Like, this is part of the power of now, right? Is that we look at all these external things. We think when we have all this money, we'll be happy. When we have our new car, when we have a new house, when we have the family vacation, when we have the 4 kids, right? Like, or 2 kids, whatever, however many you have, Starr, when you have all the kids.
Starr has about a dozen. Starr has about a dozen kids.
She has a complete dozen.
but you like start to think about all these things, and it's so external. And really, the true peace, the inner peace that you find by finding fulfillment within yourself, when you can go out for a walk and enjoy being present in that moment, that, you know, the breeze blowing through the trees, listening to the birds, you know, or sitting down. I mean, look at a dog's life, right? Like, they just get to sit there and get love all day long and be taken care of. Like, I'm coming back as a dog in my next life, by the way, like my dog, because he's a prince. But like, I think that when you start to like observe what you're focusing on, and I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough, I didn't hit that goal, like all these things start to weigh on your ego, as opposed to the gratitude piece that you just brought in, the grounding piece, the being present piece of like, what do I have to be grateful for today? Like, my husband's sitting over here doing real estate stuff, and we get to be at home together every day. We can have lunch together. We get to walk the dog together. We get to be present with our daughter every day. If I didn't focus on how grateful I am for my life today, and was constantly chasing a new goal, constantly chasing a new achievement, then I would burn out on the joy that I get to live presently today. And so many of us do that. We're like, I'll be happy when I'm on vacation in 2 months, right? I'll be happy when
you know, once you guys hit that big 6, 7, 8 figure goal, were you guys much happier?
No, I was like, there's a goal, check, moving on.
Yeah. But you know, that's interesting. I do want to talk about that in regards to, because we've brought up money quite a few times. And I know that tends to be one of the number one reasons why
like it is. Like that's what identifies you. Okay, now I'm a 6-figure earner.
Right,
now
status, all kinds of things. If you think about, you know, being present in the now, and when you're thinking about a goal to obtain financially, think, you know, like, go deeper with it, and then you'll find that you tend to amplify everything around your life towards that goal, and it'll come quicker. Meaning, instead of saying, I want $1 million, like, okay, so why do you want $1 million? And maybe that $1 million is freedom. Maybe it's more time so that you can focus on your business, that you can donate more to others. So just focus on those things. Like, focus on the fact that I really want more time with family. I really would love to be able to build an orphanage to help, you know, XYZ. And like, if you focus on that, you know that those things take money. So instead of just calling it money, focus on the positive things, like the outcome. That's huge. And you had mentioned, Christina, and that's why I just wanted to come back around to that. I love this. My last little Tolle thing that I'll put out here, but the Tolle, the illusion of control, right? So in the power of now, it says that we all have kind of this illusion of control. So then why not just release it? And you were basically stating that. And it says, relinquish the illusion of control and instead embrace the flow of life. And when you embrace the flow of life, you're more apt to trust a higher intelligence. And so it's not all about you, right? It's about the other things that can happen due to your service and your works. So
well, and like if you actually broke it down as parents, like all of us are parents, and if you're not, you have other purposes in life to give back, right? But all of us as parents, what do we want? We want a better life for our kids.
Of course.
Why do we want to make more money? To have a better life for our kids. But if we're constantly focusing, like I know so many dads or corporate women too that work their asses off, and then they do the exact opposite of why they're working, right? They're not present for their family. They're working to achieve. But like, what if, just hear me out on this, what if you focused on daily being a great parent and giving your kids little experiences, like it doesn't need to cost you $1 million to provide a great life for your kid. It could be the half an hour that you take after school to walk them home from school, stop for ice cream, have a conversation with them and sit and be present with them, right? That half an hour is going to mean so much more to them than you constantly working and not being present today, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed a month from now. And that is what most people miss in all of this achievement part. They miss the present pieces of doing the work today, even in small steps, so that they can get to the big things. They can get to the African safari or whatever it is, right?
They're not going to tell you at your funeral, she was the #1 person in network marketing. She was a 7-figure earner. She was, a #1 best-selling author. They're not going to say that at your funeral.
No.
Wow. You know what, that in itself, and this is my close, so we can do a round robin, but that in itself really just triggered something with me, Christina, because it made me think about both when we talk about wanting more for our children. And I think about, this is the best analogy I can think of with my kids, that I could buy the most expensive toy, right? The hottest thing on the market, something that costs thousands of dollars, right? Might even be the swing set or playground I just built, right? So it could be thousands of dollars, and yet my kids want to take the boxes and convert them into a playhouse. And
with you.
Right? And so, but really the lesson in there for me is not just that kids, like the simple things in life, but me spending that time of like actually creating that with them, laughing with them, me getting in the box, like that time of me being dad and being in the now, being present with them is a memory that they will reflect on forever. They may never even think about the swing set or the playground or that slide, right? But they're going
to think about the time that daddy pushed me down the slide.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. So we have to just remind ourselves of that's what it's really all about. It is being in the power of now.
Those moments. I remember my kids still to this day, they're like, Mom, remember when you used to pick us up from school in the car water line and we would talk about our high and low? Because I would always ask them, what's your high? What's your low? And I was like, oh, it was those little moments. It wasn't, oh, remember that time you took us to Universal Studios and you spent tens of thousands of dollars? No, it was those little moments that, like you said, Christina. And so, live in the moment, stop focusing on your ego. So I definitely say, stop edging God out.
I love that.
I'm good, man. Starr, you want to round it up? You want to take her home?
I'm done.
And this is coming from one of the guests that we had on the show last week. Her mom told her that you're alive today, right? Anything else can be fixed. So stop worrying about the past, guys. Don't stress about the future. Live in the present day time and know that everything's going to be good.
She said there's a solution for everything except for death.
Yep.
Wow.
And the only thing we have control over is the exact, like this present right now, what I'm actually doing, whether I decide to pick this pencil up and start journaling, my life. I mean, the results of the present may amplify what happens into the future, right? But it doesn't mean that tomorrow will come. So as you just stated, Starr, focus on this, being here now. What happened in the past, it doesn't serve me to worry about those things. And yet we all do it, right? So we recommend to definitely, if you haven't read The Power of Now, Definitely. It's a classic book. I think a lot of people reference certain points from that book. Eckhart Tolle is the or Tolle, we're not sure yet, is the is the author of that book. And I mean, today, I think if anything, whether we had 20 people tuning in or whether we had 2,000 people tuning in, I think this really set up kind of a presence even for myself. And so, I'm no longer going to focus on these things that just become kind of anchors in my life. And so I recommend you do the same thing. But thank you so much. Any other closing statements?
I think we did a good job this today.
All right.
I think all of us made ourselves think a little bit.
Yeah, we really did. That's what it's all about. And so again, if someone didn't watch last week's show, we talk a lot about the future of what we're trying to do here with the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. And so I'll just end by saying, please give us some love, follow, like, share, facebook.com/uncensored entrepreneurs. You can find us on other platforms. We're still working out the bugs and trying to get everything else on our podcast platforms, but that's coming up. It's right around the corner. And then so many other things, right? We'll talk a little bit further about a summit we're trying to put together and a mastermind and some other things to just really bring a lot of value to you. And we appreciate each and every one of you.
And we are very grateful for you.